Where you want to start?
All right, brother. We're on the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast again. My name is Mark Ross and I am the host. And with me tonight is a good brother of mine. His name is Lieutenant Pride Davis.
Right.
Uh Pride and I spoke before and we just lost touch somehow, but I've always had him in my mind and I wanted to have him on so we can get this podcast going, and he had the time to get with me and get this thing cracking. So, brother, we're here.
Hey man, I really appreciate you having me, man. You know what? You said we lost contact, but did we really? I mean, we stayed in contact. We text, we chatted from time to time, right? We
Yeah,
just
yeah.
had the time to sit down and do this, and that's one of the main takeaways of my life, right? And is networking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Building your team, and part of that networking and building your team is staying in contact. It
Mm.
may not be the way you want to stay in contact, but as long as you are touching those different nodes in your network every now and again to make sure they're still alive is important, right?
Sure is.
Um, so I think your normal conversation starts off with who are you, where you're from, and what do you do?
Boom.
Uh,
There you
so
go.
I'll go ahead and answer those three questions, man.
For
So
sure.
I appreciate the introduction there. Like you said, I'm a lieutenant in the Navy, the world's finest Navy, and that's purely by mentorship and guidance, right? We can probably get into that. Um, but I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I grew up in St. Louis proper, right? The north side of St. Louis.
Mm.
Might not have a lot of my accent left, but a lot of the lessons are still there. So those are the
Yes,
important
sir.
part. What do I do? That's right. So just like everybody else in the world, my life is multifaceted, right? So my day job is, of course, a aviation maintenance officer in the United States Navy. Started out as an aviation technician and worked my way up to that, right? Uh, my side gig, I like to call it, my wife and I like to call it, we own real estate,
Mm.
and we're building that up. Looking to purchase our first property management company this year, and then
Nice.
I'm also real big on giving back to the community. So my third job is my fraternity Alpha Phi Alpha, where
Mm.
I look to give back to the community, right? Teaching and educating the young brothers how to get through high school, go to college, and be successful and build a network from that. Teaching people about voter education and things of that nature, and being active in our community, right? Making sure that those young brothers and sisters that are going through the same situations that I went through growing up have resources like, basic things like food,
Mm.
supplies,
Mm-hmm.
access to mentorship, access to guidance. That's becoming a very, very big part of my life. We can get into more of that as the conversation goes on. So over to
Sure.
you, how you want to steer it?
Oh no, you good, brother. But before we get into it, I just want to let people know that come on to the show. If they have any questions that they want to ask during our interview, uh, please do so. Whenever the questions pop up, hopefully you guys will present questions, and if I do see questions, I'll present it uh, to Brother Pride Davis, and we'll just go from there. All right. So if you guys have any questions during this discussion, please feel free to ask. All right. So, brother Pride, just talk to us about your experience growing up in St. Louis, brother.
Oh man, I love telling people about this, right? And I have to set the stage, right? So it's a pretty typical, what I believe is a typical St. Louis City life, right? Um, before I, say what I have to say, man, my mother was great. In hindsight, I believe my mother was absolutely, she wasn't perfect, but she did her job, right?
Sure.
But she had her challenges, right? She struggled
Yes.
with alcoholism, she struggled with drug addiction, things of that nature, right? The typical thing you see in a poor neighborhoods, right?
Hmm.
Economic scale, right? But in that in my family network, right, I had a lot of people. My mom had 11 brothers and sisters, five brothers and five sisters, right? So she had a very large family. And at the time, well, when I was growing up, a lot of those people did still live in St. Louis. So that was a great thing. And again, I'll talk about how that affected me growing up.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and another part to it was so my biological father, who passed away when I was very, very young, had a big family as well. But my stepdad also had a big family. So I had a very big family network to pull from whenever I needed something, right? So
Yes.
had a lot of male mentorship and guidance in my life. At the time, did I listen? No, we never do, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Right.
but in hindsight, again, older pride looking back at younger pride had a lot of good things going on around. In a bad situation, I had a lot of good things going on,
Mm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I really, really, just really one, thank God for that, and two, try to create those situations for other people. Um, so again, growing up, my mom struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction. So what did that
Yeah.
do? That put me in a position. I had two younger siblings. Uh, my,
Okay.
my eldest brother, he was 10 years ahead of me, so he got out of the situation a little early. He moved out of state, um, and so that left me as like the eldest sibling in the house. So that put me in a leadership position fairly early on. A lot of my cousins and aunties and uncles say, "Hey, um, not only were you kind of sort of raising your little brothers and sister, like you were kind of like the dad for your little brother and sister, you were also like the man of the house for your mom. You were like kind of a stabilizing factor for your mom, right?"
Now, yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but
Oh no, go ahead.
when you say that, it resonated with me because a lot of us, a lot of brothers, you know, in certain communities, they had to be the man of the house.
Hmm.
So, and it's no fault of their own. It's
Nope.
just the environment that they grow up in. It made them grow up fast,
Yeah, and
and not necessarily losing their childhood, so to speak, but it put them in a really funky position because now you people look up to you,
hmm
but you're still a kid and you have people look up to you, and it's like now you got to carry this burden almost. So
hmm
in some respects, and I'll ask you uh, if that burden uh, took a toll on you growing up.
No, and that's the thing. Maybe I'm very whimsical when it comes to these type of things. I think it just prepared me for the next level of everything. Right.
Yeah.
It felt hard at the time. Looking back on it, I don't think it felt hard. Because I'm the type of person that I'm gonna bloom where I'm planted. And I just always have just naturally been like that, right? So yeah, I would say that, right? Like so it was a lot of yeah, there was a lot of freedom. I mean, a lot of responsibility, but there was a lot of
Yeah.
freedom in that responsibility too, right? There was a lot of things that I had access to, a lot of conversations I was able to have, a lot of things that I was able to do that my peer group wasn't able to do, which I
Mm.
think had a lot to do with the path that I took in life, right? Because when I
Mm.
look at my peer group from that time, again, you gotta think this is late 90s, early 2000s. That's when we're still kind of like the nucleus neighborhood, nucleus family, nuclear neighborhood, right? Where, especially in St. Louis is really kind of segregated still to this day, where black families live in a certain area, Hispanic families live in a certain area,
Yeah.
white families in a certain area, right? There's
Right.
no laws that dictate that, right? But it just kind of works out that right?
Right.
So I had a very big neighborhood. I had a lot of friends. I had a very diverse peer group. But a lot of that peer group kind of stovepipe into a lot of the same choices, right? So again, I think a lot of that early exposure to high level decision making
Mm.
resulted in a lot of the decisions that I made later on in life, right? Um, yeah. And I don't I still have a great relationship. I have a great relationship with my mom is like I don't call her my best friend because it's still my mom, right? It's
Sure.
still my mom, right? But we
Sure.
have a
Well,
great
always.
relationship. You know what I'm
That's
saying? Like
good, man.
uh
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of skipping forward in the story. A couple years ago I was able to buy I was in a position where I was able to buy her a house. And I said, Mom, what do you want to do? Like you want to live in the county with, the white folks, or you want to get you a nice big house in the hood or whatever. She's like, look, I'm used to living in these duplexes in these neighborhoods, and I want to continue to do that. So buy a duplex, put me a neighbor upstairs, and I'm gonna love it. And every time I go back to St. Louis, I stay with my mom, and man, we have a good time.
That's what's up,
She,
man.
she loves that duplex.
Good. I would have. Hey,
She loves it,
her
right?
son bought it, brothers.
Yeah,
Her son bought it.
again, kind of developing the psyche of my mom, man. She's one of those people that will give you the shirt off her back, right?
Uh,
Very, very, very firm in her morals and her beliefs. You might not agree with her morals and her beliefs, right? But she's very firm in them. But she's nobody. I don't think I've ever met anybody in my life that said they didn't love Clara Jean. But Clara Jean is a lot. All right, she's a lot to deal with, right? But another one of the things that she developed early on is where she wanted to be in life, right? And I have to
mm,
have a lot of conversations with people like her brothers and sisters. My mom developed early on in life where she knew I don't want to go past this level in life. And a lot of us look at that like, oh, you're selling herself short. But I've not met anyone happier than her, right? Like I could go to my mom today. I could hit the lottery right now today
right.
and go to St. Louis and say, Mom, I don't care, whatever it is, what do you want? I know exactly what she's going to say, and it's not going to cost me more than $100.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, right? She knows what she wants in life, and she's very kind-hearted. She just enjoyed life, right? She
Yes.
just had a
Yeah.
lot of fun in life.
Yeah.
So kind of taking a roundabout way here. I really want to just really emphasize, like I had a great mom, right? She just enjoyed life, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so let's talk about the childhood, right? The arc of the childhood.
Yes.
There was a lot of home instability, right? Because my mom's income came out from my deceased parent check from my father, right? I told you my father died or passed away at a very young age.
Right.
So her primary income was my deceased parent check. And this is what we're talking, what, $800 a month. In late 90s, early 2000s, you could pay your rent and still
Yeah.
have a little bit of
Yeah.
money left over,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but there was a lot of instability with that, right? Because she also has this habit that may cause you to miss a couple rent payments, or we're living in neighborhoods that the landlords maybe don't do their paperwork on time and the house gets condemned or whatever, right? So a lot of instability there. So there was a time where, excuse me, um, we bounced from school to school, and we spent some time in a shelter. So this is the first time that I couldn't have been no more than 8 or 9.
Okay.
Um, and this is the first time me and my mom got real tight. So what ended up happening was my granddad, man, another great dude that I would love to expand upon, Elder John Watson Sr.
Mm.
Um, he arranged for us to get a house, right? Because we were very unstable. He arranged for us to get a house. And we were living in this house for about a year, maybe a little bit less. And I burned the house down.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah, I burned the
Oh.
house down. So it was around the 4th of July.
Accidentally.
Yeah, yeah. It was around the 4th of July. One of my uncles had all his household goods stored in our garage. And I was playing with like some old fireworks or whatever in the garage, and it caught on to, the household goods, the bed and stuff
Mm.
like that.
Mm.
And my luck, what goes like this, right? So the garage is burning, 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 and there's a vacant lot to the right and our house to the left. Well, when the garage decides to fall, it falls on the house, right? And it burns the house down, right?
Oh. Oh
So
no.
I still get teased to this day by my cousins, man. I actually got whooped on the news, right? So
Oh.
I got whooped on Channel 5 News and everybody saw
Oh
it. So
no.
yeah, yeah. So house burns down. We again, now we're unstable again.
Oh.
Going to the shelter, Christian Service Center. And this is the first time I like see my mom as the superwoman that I know today, right? Because through no fault of her own, right? This is my fault. I burned the house down. We are in a situation where she has to really like turn it out, right? She got she has to save up enough money to get us out of the shelter and get us in a better situation. And she did so. Like we went through a Christmas and she got us presents in the shelter. She made sure that even though there's very strict rules on staying in the shelter, right? You gotta be back by a certain time. It was kind of a crazy situation. And she made sure that we were still going to school. One of my mom's big things was she didn't graduate with her high school diploma, but one of her emphasis for us, every one of my siblings, I have five siblings, one has passed away, but uh every one of us was going to have a high school education, right? That was her thing. Like at a minimum, you
Okay.
have education. She did everything to ensure that, even though
Okay.
I did everything to combat that, right? So we go through this shelter period, man, and I just really see my mom like really just pull herself together for the 6 months it took to um get us out of that situation and then take us to the next level, right? And that was like the first time that I could remember seeing someone set a goal, like, hey, I have a goal and I'm going to devote all my time and effort into that. And that kind of stuck with me, right? And keep in mind, I'm like 7 or 8. And it's a
Mm,
kind of a crazy time, right? And then you got to think like that. Now, when you say, hey, was being kind of the father figure, um, a burden on you, no, burning down a house and wearing that guilt,
mm,
like you got like nobody in my family, like not a lot of people in my family owned their own home at that time.
mm-hmm.
My granddad, God rest his soul, moved a mountain to get my mom a house, and I burned it down. Like, like how do you come back from that, right? So then that's what make taking that pack of being the man of the house on a little bit easier down the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it gives you the sense to like, hey, um, my decisions affect other people. The things I do affect other people very early on, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so now do I learn this lesson overnight? No, I don't, but I take it on, right? Um, now fast forward throughout the years, I'm getting, you know, I am in trouble at school a lot, right? Am I a bad student? I probably wouldn't want me in my class, but I think a lot of my teachers would say, hey, he's a sweet child, he's very respectful, he's just needs to, you know, sit down. Like he needs to calm down. So, a lot of fights and stuff like that. So, I began to start getting put out of suspended from school and put out of different schools, right? Um, and my mom would say all the time, like, I'm spending more time at the school than you are. Like you suspended more than you're not. Like, I need you to take this serious. Like
Mm,
you're gonna graduate. You have to graduate, right? But she never gave up on me. No matter how many schools I got put out of, she always found another school to put me in. Now it helped that uh I'm a very, very good test taker, so I kept the bar high for the standardized test.
yeah.
Um yeah, it did. But that all kind of came to a head. Again, I'm skipping a lot of stuff. Um that all kind of came to a head during high school. Earlier I talked about my vast family network, right? And I just talked about how I had a lot of trouble staying in school, man. And uh one of the things I think that helped me on my path was what my granddad would do is call his sons and be like, hey, you need to go pick Pride up and do something with him this summer. So my uncle John Jr. He had he owned a paint and restoration business, right? Drywall and
Yep.
paint.
Okay.
Um, and he would come get me at the beginning of the summer. And we would go and we would paint houses, right? And he would increase my depth and my responsibility because he was at the time, I think he was a fire captain and he was making the transition to fire chief.
Mm,
So I don't know if you know a lot about how the fireman schedule works, but they have like duty
Three
schedule,
on, two off,
3 on 3 off, right? So
something like
like
that. Yeah.
at the firehouse for 3 days straight, and then you have 3 days off. So it
Yeah.
got to the point where, um, I get my license. I just get my license at 16. But I had been working with him since I was 12, 13. Um, and he picks me up. We work for 3 days, and then he says, "All right, man, drop me off at the firehouse. Come get me in 3 days. You got to finish up that house so we can get paid." Right. So I'm learning that response again. I am making high level decisions. I have high level responsibility, and I know that my decisions affect other people. Right. Like this is part of the way my uncle feeds his family. This is how I'm going to make money. I'm going to drop him off, and then it's on me to manage the relationship with the customer, to go and get supplies and manage all this stuff. And a lot of people don't get that chance there early, right? Like at 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, my
If
uncle,
at all.
if at all, right? Some people
Yes.
don't get that chance at 40, right? And then
Right.
they're not fumbling, right?
Right.
So my uncle Malcolm Brown, he would come and get us, and he one of the one Malcolm and Janice Brown were one of the people in our family that owned a house, and they owned a fairly large house. And so he would come get me, and we would do summer projects at his house, like redo the roof, right? He always had something that the house that needed to be done, right? And I'm learning these skills, right?
Mhm.
My uncle Donnell Watson, he was a service manager for a large apartment complex, and he would come get me, and I would just hang out at the apartment complex with these other guys that he worked with, right? And I didn't know until later, like that I'm seeing how a a man operates in a dynamic work environment, right? Or a very diverse work environment, right? Because it's not just all black people, right? It's white people, white men, and he's the manager, right? And
Yeah.
his boys, and he would teach me a lot of plumbing and HVAC and stuff like that. My stepdad, Samuel Wooten, another big influence in my life, man. He we would always do maintenance on the car together all the time, right? So, and my granddaddy, being the pastor of the church, he was a very emotionally intelligent person, and he would always get us all together, like, and just talk to us, like, "Hey, man, what are you doing for your health? Like, how are you taking care of yourself? What's the next step in your life, right?" His thing, and please forgive me, but I have to say it the way he used to say it. Say, look, right now, who you are can get a nigga like you a dime a dozen on the street. How are you gonna differentiate yourself?
That part.
You know what I'm
What
saying?
makes you
So
different from the other
what makes
people?
you different? Why would somebody come and pay you $90,000 a year? Right? That was his thing. Like, how are you what's the next feather you're putting in your cap? Right. So the reason why I'm pointing all this out is because it wasn't one person or one event or one thing or one decision that just kind of put me on my path, man. It was all these people around me pouring into me. Now I'm pointing out the men, but it was a lot. I have a lot of aunts too, right?
Sure.
And my aunts represent the older half of my mother's siblings, right? So they are, for all intents and purposes, the leaders of the family, right? And my aunts are pouring into me now to the point where um I value my relationship with like older women in the organization as mentors, and I'll probably seek out a woman first when I need advice before I seek out a man, right?
Yeah.
Because
As long as you get it.
is correct. I mean, and you really got to think about women in the workplace, right? They can't operate how we operate, right? So they have a whole nother decision matrix they have to go through when they're doing something, and it is valuable to have that insight.
And let
So
me, oh,
no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
No,
No,
I was going to ask, what what made you uh what made you have your behavioral issues as a kid? Because you said that you had, your pops died when you were young. You were blessed to have a stepdad. You were also blessed to have uncles and aunts that were there for you, and they planted seeds in you. You know what I'm saying? But there was a period you said that you had behavioral problems and you was getting in fights, getting kicked out of school. What do you think stemmed that part of your young life, Brian?
and that's a great question. I love that question. So a lot of people, um I haven't done the work to find out, hey, was there some kind of trauma or some mental thing there yet? So I can't speak to that. But I did have this experience. And it put a lot of things in perspective, right? There's a couple things that happened, and we'll get to a couple of them, but I want to kind of highlight this experience. So when I first commissioned, I commissioned as a pilot in the Navy. And I go down to flight school, and I'm put on what they call is a hold, right? Something's wrong. Like you can't go into flight training immediately, so you get put on this hold. And so that's called a stash. And when you get stashed, you get a stash job. My stash job was um in Pensacola, they have the Naval Aviation History Museum, and in a part of the Naval Aviation History Museum is this STEM Academy, and in the STEM Academy they have a flight simulator for the Blue Angels. So all the public
Mm,
schools in the area would bring the kids to the STEM, and they would go through all the different modules. And my part was to guide the kids through the flight simulator, right? It was very low threat, very, very fun. Um, but I noticed um there was this trend of like the kids in the city or the kids in lower income neighborhoods would come in, and I ask every kid the same, "Hey, do you have any interest in flying planes, or what do you want to do when you grow up?" And the kids in the city were like, "I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea." But the kids that came from the more affluent neighborhoods knew exactly what they wanted to do.
mm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
So there was this young girl, she couldn't have been no more than 8 or 9. And I was like, hey, what do you want to do? She flew this plane like she had been doing it out the womb, like landed on the back of the carrier, first try, everything, right?
Mm,
Like I'm like, man, like she could, if we could put like some phone books in the seat, she could fly a jet right now. Like, right? So I'm like, man, you want to be a pilot? She's like, absolutely not. I'm like, oh, okay, everybody wants to be a pilot. What do you want to be? She was like, I'm gonna be a vet. I'm gonna be a veterinarian. I know exactly what type of, I know I'm gonna horses, four-legged big mammals are gonna be my thing. It's like, okay. What makes you want to be a vet? She's like, because that's what I'm gonna be. And she goes on to tell me, like, yeah, so my parents set it up to where I go to I always say this word wrong, equestrian,
yeah.
or
Equestrian. Yes.
yeah. Um
Yes.
every summer. And I work with horses.
Mm,
And I know what college I'm gonna go to.
mm.
I already know what college I'm going to, right? And
Right.
she's 8 or 9. And
She's
so
a
she
kid.
already has her goals lined out, and she's going to be laser focused on it, meaning she knows, like, all right, if I can get out of high school early by taking these classes, I'm going to do it. If I can get to college early
Yeah.
by doing this, I'm going to
Yeah.
do it.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
because she already knows, I want to be here, I want the most direct and efficient path to it. And that made me start thinking about my life. I was like, man, like, when did I get serious about life? When did I stop being a goofball? And it was when I started setting goals. And so,
Message.
right. So when I think about that time of my life, when I was a kid, I was getting in trouble in school. I didn't see a purpose in school.
Mm,
Why am I getting my high school diploma? What job am I going to do? So if I try to, you know, attribute my behavior to something, I didn't see a purpose. I didn't have there was no purpose in any of this school situation for me. It's a waste of my time because it doesn't get me to my end goal. My end goal at that time, I believe, was like to be an HVAC technician. By the time when I turned 18, I'm pretty sure I could have went and took the EPA certification and became an HVAC technician. I didn't even need a high school diploma to do that. So
I don't think you still don't.
you get what I'm saying? Like I'm not completely 100% on that, but so if I don't need any of the school stuff to get to my goal, then like why am I doing it? Right.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So the important thing for me with my children was having them set long-term goals early. Um, so my son has known for a long time that he wants to be a copyright lawyer, right? Yes, copyright lawyer. So all his steps are in order for him to be a copyright letter. We already know how we're going to fund his college. We already know to the point where he's interning at excuse me, law firms, and he's 15, right? Um, so to answer your question, I think the lack of a clear defined goal or clear defined purpose and why I was doing it led to a lot of those behaviors. Now,
Mm,
other factors, right? Do I need to sit down somewhere? Yes, I'm still absolutely hyper. Yeah. To do
mm-hmm,
it, is there was there the knowledge that there was not a lot of oversight at home? Of course, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's other things that play into that. But I think that lack of a clear goal and clear understanding of how this plays into my future um was kind of really the ultimate.
And a
uh
lot of us didn't have the guidance that other folks did. You know what I'm
our
saying?
kind of yeah,
Especially,
yeah,
especially,
our counterparts. Mhm.
yeah, right, right,
More
right. Let's
affluent
keep it a buck.
counterparts. Yeah.
We didn't have that because we were taught to survive. We
Okay.
weren't taught to, hey, what do you want to do with your life? What do you see yourself doing after high school? We weren't asked those questions.
Hmm.
And I don't blame our parents
They
necessarily for
because they
that.
weren't in
They
a
did
position
what
to
they
do
had to
that.
do. Right. They were just doing what they had to do to make sure that we eat, bills paid,
Hmm.
house is good, you
Hmm.
good. You got clothes on your back, water running. I mean, the necessities.
Okay, but I even give you this. If you came to me today and said, "Hey, Pride, I want to be an electrical engineer. I've never gone through the path of electrical engineer," right? So all I can do is give you the theory of how to become an electrical engineer. Hey, man, you need to go to college and take electrical engineering. I don't know the steps, right?
Right.
But what if your dad or your mom or your dad and your mom were electrical engineers, and you say, you know what, I want to be an electrical engineer. You
Mm,
think they can lay out that path a little more clear for you? You think they
mm.
can kind of hold your hand? Do you think they can call somebody, hey, Bill, Bob, um, my son is thinking about becoming an electrical engineer. You think he can come over to your firm and see how things work? Or hey, Bill, Bob, my son is in college right now for electrical engineering, or he's going to high school. He's all set to go to MIT. What will you have for him at your firm when he gets out? And Bill Bob says, "Oh, well, I could start him off at $200,000, doing XYZ." Would that not motivate you to go and do that?
Absolutely.
So another big part of that too is as parents, we have to build our network for our children, right? So we can make those calls. So when my son says, "Hey, Dad, I want to go to a service school. I want to go to Naval Academy, or I want to go to not the Citadel, but a service academy, Air Force Academy, or something like that, right?" I can call a senator and be like, "Hey, man, I need an endorsement for my son to go to the Naval Academy. You think you got us?" Yeah, absolutely, pride. Right, we have to build our network, right?
Yeah.
Everybody talk about nepotism as this bad thing, or it's
Mm-mm,
it's wrong. No,
mm-mm.
it's only bad when you don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
Nepotism, right? Because how do I know? How can I vouch for someone I know nothing about?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I have a comment here which backs up our claim. It says, I think that's wrong with a lot of our youth. They
Mm.
don't have any goals or feel like they have no purpose in life. And
That's
that
not.
was and for me, brother Pride, I can say for me, I know I didn't at one point. And I
Mhm.
think that was part of my anger because I wanted to get out of the hood. I just didn't know how to get out of the hood. You know what I'm saying? I All I knew is I didn't want to be in here.
Mhm.
I was mad because we're living in these crabs in a bucket, areas where everybody wants to hold you down and keep, you know what I'm saying? So it's like I wanted out of that. I wanted out of that and I didn't want to look back at it. So for me, uh the military was my escape route.
Mhm.
I don't regret it one bit.
Mm.
When I was of age, I signed through, I went to the army. I didn't pass the test. I'm like, whatever. I went to the Marines, took the test, passed it, boom. I met with the recruiter and I told him flat out, Pride, I said, look, I want you to be straight with me. What am I going to expect when I go to boot camp? I'm
Mm.
going and I'm going to finish. I just need to know what to look forward to. And he sat me down his whole demeanor changed, bro.
Mm,
And he told me that I was going to go through some of the worst weeks of my life. And I
mm,
did.
mm,
I did. But I held on to his advice though. He told me, he said, through everything that you're going to go through, bro, he said, Mark, you need to stay focused. Stay focused on finishing. If your goal is to be a Marine and finish boot camp, make that your goal.
mm-hmm,
So you need to take your ass to the gym every day. You need to run every day, eat, sleep, get your body prepared because you're going to go through some hell.
mm.
He was right. I did, but I finished.
Yeah.
I had it in my head to complete that goal, right?
Uh,
Because he put the seed in my head to do so. And he had the faith in me that I can do this. That's another thing. We don't have enough people that will actually sit you down and give you that push to be what you want to be, to guide you to what you want to be, or at least say, hey, I don't know how to do it, but I know somebody that can do it. Let me link you up with this person.
I think there's a couple things I want to hit on that, but I want to address that last point first. I think there's a lot of people out there giving advice. Like we're living in an information age. You could find
Now we are.
advice no matter everywhere you look. You can find advice on the back of a can right now,
Yes,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I think the issue we have with our young people is that us old people are not listening to the young people when they say they want to do something, right? And understanding their need before we give them advice, right? I would I know for a fact that like if my kid came to me right now and said, "Dad, I want to be a YouTube influencer," the first thing in my brain is going to be that's stupid.
Hmm.
Right? But I have to stop myself and say, "Hold up now. Right? What do you know about YouTube influencers? What do you know about that industry? Are you even in a position to give good advice on how to do that? Right. So then if that's a two-way check valve, it's a yes or a no. Do I have the information there? If the answer is no, then I need to follow your second step is, you know what, who in my network can I reach out to give my child good advice on if this is a good decision to make or not? Right. And that's another two-way check valve. Do I have someone in my network? Yes. No. If the answer is no, then I need to increase my network.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
So the first part you said and I kind of want to address a couple of things, right? You said you don't remember having a lot of goals growing up. And one of the reasons why you made it through, you wanted to go into the military was to get out the hood. I was totally different, man. I was happy as a lark in my little right? Dr. Martin Luther King, the good fella,
Yeah.
King's Highway to Grand. I was great. I loved my little existence, right? But then my mind was blown. I saw somebody doing something that was so far beyond my imagination, that I had to shoot for it. I met, I met a gentleman. I'm not gonna put his name out there, but I met a gentleman um that owned land. He owned apartment complexes and he didn't work for anybody. And he donated his time and his effort into giving back to his community. Black dude living life on his own terms in 2000 in like 2000, like right before the recession, right? Like living his best life. And the way he was living like fundamentally changed how I saw my box. My box was safety before that day, but after that day, my box was a cage, right? So then, right, and I actually met that guy through my uncle painting houses. Painting houses. We painted his house.
Mm.
And he had a gorgeous house. I would venture to call it an estate. Like the drive up, uh uh gated driveway and everything. Right. Like it was gorgeous. So that's when I set the goal. So now we're at the point, oh, and the third part of that, is you said, after talking with your recruiter, you
My
set the
recruiter.
goal. getting through boot camp. One of the things my granddaddy taught me was to shoot through goals, right? So, all right, cool. I'm going through boot camp to get into the military, but what is my goal on the other side of boot camp?
Hmm.
So, for me, two things. For me, boot camp was relatively easy. Actually, probably three things. Relatively easy because,
It's the
uh,
Navy.
sure, sure. Uh, I don't have any other experience, so I don't have anything compared to. But
I had to throw that in there, boss.
no, no, it's good. The way I grew up, but the way I grew up, man, I literally grew up with rats and roaches crawling across my chest.
Oh, me too, bro. Me
You know
too.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah, yeah.
anything, anything outside of that was a better situation. Like, you mean to tell me all I gotta do is wake up, do some push-ups, and you're gonna feed me? Like,
You
what are we
did.
doing here? Like,
So I mean,
and oh my, and you're gonna put money in my account,
right. Put me in
waking
the
up,
game,
doing your
coach.
push-ups, and then eating your food. Sign me up, coach. Like, so
Put me in the game, man.
put
Put
me in
me in the
there, right?
game.
And so what ended up happening, man, is just like with my uncle, right? I get to boot camp, man.
Yeah, boss said, talk about that, man. What made you get into the Navy?
Oh man, that's a whole nother story, right? So, I talked about all the experience I had with my uncles and stuff. And what ended up happening was let me go back a little bit. So, I get to high school. Um, I don't get to walk across stage for middle school because I get suspended the day before graduation, right? So they don't let me walk across, right? Um, my mom signs me up for this new school. It's a charter school called Construction Career Center. I go there for 3 years. Again, I'm in and out of trouble all the time. My junior year, they finally expelled me. And so now I have to go back to public school. So I go back to public school and I get there and they look at my report card and it was like, look, based off your poor grades and based off the fact that half the classes you took we don't offer, right? We don't offer welding, we don't offer construction, we don't offer AutoCAD. Well, they did AutoCAD, but they didn't count it because I had like a D in it or whatever. Um, you are technically a junior, but we're gonna start you as a second semester freshman,
Mm.
right? So you're gonna be 21 when you 22 or something like that when you graduate from here. And I'm like 17, about to turn 18. I'm like,
Yep.
it's not doing that, right?
Right, right, right.
So I
You
go
gonna
to
go
a
to
school,
college.
you know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm like, this is crazy. So I finish out the year. I think I did maybe a year and a half or something like that, because all my friends from the neighborhood were juniors and seniors. So I would go to school to hang out with them. But once they graduate, I had zero interest in being in school anymore, right? Like zero, none. So man, I couldn't even tell you why. I might have been like just sitting on the couch and the commercial came on. You know how like the dude used to come on, man, you're sitting on the couch anyway. You know what I'm saying? Da da da, come do this. So I just walked into Job Corps, um, and sat down and talked with the counselor. Now, this is how God works. You have to like set up an interview to go even talk to anybody in Job Corps. You have to dress in business casual. It's a thing, like, because they're filtering out their candidates because they want people that are going to be successful in their programs, right? I show up in flip flops, basketball shorts,
Mm.
and a basketball jersey. Like, hey, I'm trying to come to Job Corps, and this is how God works. My auntie was an intake coordinator.
For the Job
Job,
Corps?
yep.
Okay.
My auntie was intake coordinator. Anybody else in that situation would have turned me away. She
Mm.
enrolled me that day, told me, hey, you need to go back, change clothes, and come back for orientation.
Mm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I get in Job Corps, and she hooks me up with a counselor, and the counselor sits down and tells me about career planning and goal setting. And we talked about making SMART goals. Not the first time I heard about it, but the first time I took it serious, right? So I make a SMART goal. I was gonna get my high school diploma, and get my trade and work in my trade, and I was gonna do that in 2 years. In about 2 years, I think that was the minimum time it would take for me to train to do that arc. Just by having that goal, I was able to do that I was able to do that in a little over 13 months. So I got my left there with my GED, my high school diploma, and a skilled trade and a job in my trade in like 13 months, right? So that started me on the path of setting this goal. Now I need to set a bigger goal. So I'm working in my trade, and again, like I said, wherever I go, I get put in these positions of responsibility, right? Happen to Job Corp, happen to boot camp. Um, it's no different when I get out to the job market. So I go and I'm working for uh, this big property management company called Village Green. And Village Green immediately within like I think it was like 4 months put me on the track to be a service manager, meaning I would have my own property that I manage the maintenance for, right? Um, but keep in mind, I'm still 20, 19, 20 years old, right? So I'm still making I have 20, 19, 20-year-old thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I go through the track, they send me to training, and they make me their youngest service manager in the history of the company, right? And then they put me with their newest, they put me in their newest acquisition, which was Village Park of Baldwin. It's in a very ritzy part of St. Louis that I ain't got no business going out there doing. So now I'm seeing people in another elevated lifestyle every day. This is how these people live,
Okay.
right? This is
Okay.
what they do. This is what they. I'm talking to these people. I'm going to do maintenance for somebody, and we get to chopping it up. And he's telling me about how he manages his stock portfolio. What's a stock portfolio? You can do that by yourself. You don't have to
Mm.
have a guy, right? So I'm learning all these things, right?
Yeah.
Um, again, so I had to go back to I'm 19, 20 years old, and I'm not the better adjusted person I am today. So me and my property manager, we're kind of bumping heads because she's a micromanager. I'm like, man, just stay out my chili and let me manage my service stuff, right?
Sure.
So around Christmas of 2007, right? Because that was right when President Barack Obama got elected. Things came to a head. So corporate asked me to take vacation to let things cool off. And come back after was it after Christmas or something like that? And my service technician called me, was like, hey man, they got this new guy here. He's saying he's gonna be the new service manager. So I'm like, man, I'm gonna get fired. There's no way I could be, out here without a job. So I go and talk to my recruiter, and I'm like, man, I want to sign up for the Navy. I want to sign up today, man. Like, what's up? And we had a dope conversation, man. My Matt was like the realest dude I ever met. He was like, look, man, you're gonna like same kind of conversation, like, hey, the first 4 years of your career is probably not going to be what you expect, right? Because
Mm-mm.
it's going to be it's going to be a
Oh.
little rough, right? But
Mm-mm.
once you get to that once you start moving up to that supervisor level, the journeyman level, right? Once you get out the E4 ranks, once you get above E4, you get to E5 and you start to get to that journeyman level, things are gonna look a little bit better. Did not lie at all.
Mm.
Uh, so back to how did I get into the Navy? So go talk to Matt, um, sign up, come back from work wearing my Navy hat. And Christy was the young lady's name. And she was like, yo, I see you wearing this Navy hat. Like, are you going to the Navy? I'm like, yeah, because I mean, y'all hired this guy, y'all not telling me what y'all gonna do with me. And she was like, we got you your own property. Like they literally bought a property for you to manage. Like
What?
yeah, and we were gonna put you on a track to be a regional manager. Like they had plans to like send you to college and some other stuff. Like that sucks because I've already,
Right.
promised the government
You
I'm gonna go to the Navy.
you
Like,
signed your life away at this point.
yeah, I wish y'all had told me this, but I don't regret making that decision because it would have kept me in my box, right? I still would have been in St. Louis, right? I
Mm.
still would have been in St. Louis. I would have been on another level in St. Louis. Don't get me
Right.
wrong,
Right.
but I would still be in St. Louis, right? So then now I joined the Navy, man, and one of the deciding factors too, was one if President Barack Obama got elected president, and two if he made it through the inauguration. I was definitely going because I wanted to serve under
Dig
under
that.
the like president. And
Dig
man,
that.
what a time it was.
Dig that. So one of the things I really wanted to focus on in our conversation is you join the Navy, you go up the ranks.
Hmm.
You're an E6 at this point.
Correct.
What made you decide to switch over to become a commissioned officer?
Was always the goal. Remember, I said I always shoot through the goal, right? So
Mm-hmm.
sitting down with my recruiter, I remember telling Matt, um, so he had his pamphlet on his desk, and the pamphlet had like a couple people in there, and there was a guy with lieutenant bars on his shoulder. I was like, Matt, next time you see me, I'm gonna have those on my chest, man. And Matt was like, hey, I'm not gonna lie to you, you're gonna have to work hard, but it's
Yeah,
definitely doable.
yeah.
And so that was always the goal. The day I showed up to my first command, my chief, we do what we do these called they're called career development boards, right? So your first, I think it's like your first 90, 30, 90 days or whatever it is you're on board,
Mm-hmm.
you are required to do a career development board. So your training command can get to know what your goals are. They can set expectations and let you know what you need to do to be successful. And just understand what your dynamic is with your family, your personal life, and how they can best support you, right? And the first thing out my mouth was, I'm going to fly helicopters. I'm going to be a commissioned officer, and I'm going to fly helicopters. And everybody's like, all right, man, like, yeah, but you kind of like gotta get your basic qualifications before we get there, like,
Right, right.
so, always the goal. So,
The cart before the horse, man.
but you know what, man, like, I didn't learn the lesson about having a long term goal. I would say this, I didn't like really put it all together, but I kind of was already doing the long-term goal thing. Hey, if I want to be successful, if I want to bloom where I'm planted, then I have to have motivation to move through this and get to a bigger goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that journey was fun, man. Always having that goal in the back of my head of, hey, um, when you are transitioning from enlisted to officer, right, you have to compete with the best of the best, right? Because when your package goes up, everybody else is going to get filtered out, and then it's just going to be the top performers at that point, right? The
Right,
best in their field, right?
right.
So that was always in the back of my head, man, and it always drove me, right? And not to mention, man, again, this is how God works. I've had great mentorship and guidance throughout my career. Like my first chief in the Navy, and my first operational command on the Nimitz, Chief Brett Baldwin. Still to this day, I attribute a lot of my success to his guidance and his leadership and frankly his patience, man. Because again, look, I'm just as uh, you know just as crazy as I was in school. I'm a junior sailor. Like, so I'm doing a lot of the same stupid stuff, right? Like just
Some
just as
residuals,
right,
huh?
man, and just his patience and his understanding. Like, hey, um, I see something in you you don't necessarily see in yourself, and I'm gonna curate that.
Love that.
And I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna give you the tools to continue to grow that for when I'm not around.
Mm,
That's a very important piece, right? Like
love that.
one of his things was making sure you understand how to grow yourself, right? Um, great dude, great dude. I never
Nice.
was really sad the day he retired, man.
Yeah.
We need more and more. We need a lot more people like him
Yes,
uh,
we do.
in all ranks of the military, right? So
And in life.
in life, correct, correct.
Yes, sir. Eh,
Actually, go ahead.
yes. You mentioned during during our initial interview, Pride, that while you were in flight school, you experienced what we now call classism,
Mm,
because you talked about how brothers that were in flight school with you, they had money and money talks.
mhm,
So you talked about how those cats who had a little bit money and influence had a better experience.
mm.
Talk to me about that.
So, the money thing, yeah, man. So the money thing, that was
Yeah,
a
that
part of it.
classism thing, brother. It's
Classism
real.
thing,
It's real.
really, yeah. Here's the thing, man. Here's the real thing. And the Navy, I would say the military in general is trying to fix it.
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
maybe with the get better initiatives
Mm,
and a lot of inclusivity policies. But every community in the Navy has its own culture, right? So when we start talking about our surface warfare officers, they have a culture that they've developed, right?
mm,
We start talking about pilots and aviators, they have a culture that they develop. Just like special operators are going to have a culture that they develop, right? And for better or for worse, it's there. And in a lot of these places, they aren't welcoming to those that are perceived as outsiders to that culture. Okay.
all right.
Again, I have to caveat this with the Navy is really, really trying hard to fix that. But it takes time, right? It's probably going to take a couple generations, right?
Sure, sure,
A couple iterations of this process to get it right.
sure.
But at the time when I went through flight school, I perceived that there was still a certain type of person that the aviation community was looking for. Not necessarily the whole aviation community as a whole, right? Do I think the top brass in the aviation community? Do I think Air Boss is like, no, we're not accepting anybody like that in our community. No, I think Airboss is like, hey, we need all kinds in our community, right? But then as it filters down and it gets down to the closer to the deck plates, those people are kind of holding the culture hostage, right? And Airboss can't do a lot about that, right?
Mm, mm,
Um, so and I really want to caveat that because I think the Navy is really great place to grow and develop and do a lot of great things. Um, do I think my experience was the exception? No. All right, so here's the thing. So I get to flight school and right off the bat, one of the civilians, so even before I get there, I call, hey, I'm probably enlisted, right? I call down, I'm like, hey, my family is in another point in the United States. I'm not gonna class up for a long time. I'm requesting to take leave in transit and drive my car down so that I can have my car during my time at flight school. It's not a crazy request. Like if you've been in the military, that's normal, right? Leave in transit is pretty normal, right? That's not nothing crazy, right?
yeah.
Then you was like, no, you need to come and you need to report right now. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, who do I need to talk to about submitting leave? I'm more than willing to submit the leave. So I'll have somebody call you. So a division officer calls me, as a captain, a Marine captain calls me, hey man, um, just want to make sure I know what's going on. Like, yes, sir, I just want to take leave. He's like, all right, cool. All right. So I get there, and that same civilian, I mean, I have a pretty unique name, Pride Davis, right? There's not a lot of those running around here, right? So he sees my check-in sheet and he was like, oh, you're the person that's causing problems already before you even get here. So I already have that stamp on me as a troublemaker. And I'm
Mm,
going into a culture that is already kind of looking at me like, he's probably not, he's probably going to disrupt what we have going on. Okay. So again, we
wow.
talked about I got put on stash. And stash is basically so I had a situation where I needed to submit some more paperwork to the FAA to get my student pilot certificate. Right. Just so now I just submit the paperwork and do the waiting game, right? Um, and so I'm on stash, and I think I'm on stash for probably a month or two or whatever. And we on stash, you deal a lot more with the civilians and stuff like that. And again, it's just it's you have to take a lot on the chin, right?
Mm,
And it, like I said, my situation wasn't unique. And I've talked to people since then, and they had the same experience where, um, especially when you consider, right, I had been in the Navy for going on 10 years at that point. I had climbed the ranks up to almost an NCO, right? I was very close to becoming an NCO. Uh,
mm,
I had been around the block a couple of times, and now I'm being treated as if I'm like I'm a child, right? And I'm being talked to as if I'm a child, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, okay.
any person that feels that level, not even disrespect, like we're not even gonna call it disrespect. You feel that, what, like, hey, any person that that cares about stuff like that is gonna say something, right? Just like you. If I came to you and I was like talking to you crazy, the word at minimum, you're gonna pull me to the side, like, hey, I know you probably didn't mean it to come off that way, but we need to talk about, what just happened in that room, right? And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
would do. I would talk to him, hey, Mr. Mrs. Um, I get what you're trying to get at there, but hey, there's a better way to do this. And that rubbed them the wrong way. That I would I would correct them on it. Hey, I understand what you were trying to do with that young sailor that just got out of college that is trying to figure out how to put his butter bars on correctly. But I don't think berating him in front of everybody was the best way to do that, right? Because I'm not gonna let you talk to me like that, and I'm not gonna
Right,
let you talk to anybody in my presence like that.
right.
Okay.
The
Uh,
Marines was bad for that.
yeah,
The
yeah,
Marines was real bad for that, brother.
and that's part of their culture, right? So
It is.
they have to fix that, right? Because um a whole another situation we could talk about, but the Marines have to fix that culture, right? Because now you're competing with the commercial sector to get this young talent in. And if the young talent has to decide, do I go to the commercial sector where they're going to treat me as a human being, or do I go to the Marines where I'm not going to feel welcome?
And
That's
you're
the
not.
decision.
You're not.
That's an easy decision, right? Who would purposely do that, right? So the Marines are working hard to fix that culture, right? Actually, we was actually just talking to Commandant about that, Commandant and Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps about that at the NNOA symposium. So I get there, we're there. So I'm there for about a month, right? And these type of things are happening, right? And it's very clear, even to the point where the commanding officer, like when I checked in, like we do this whole mass check-in. And he was like, "Hey, are you raise your hand if you're probably enlisted?" I raised my hand. Keep your hand up. If you got dependents. My hand's still up. Keep your hand up if it was some other criteria. And so me and pretty much all my friends that I know from the fleet got our hands up. It was about 5 or 6 of us. It's like, you guys aren't going to make it through flight school.
No, just like that, huh?
Just like that. Just like that. So that's the backdrop, right? So the actual incident that kind of set everything off was
Mm.
when you're in stash every morning, all the stash ensigns meet. It's probably about 100 or so stash ensigns, and the what they call the lead ensign, the person pretty much has been there the longest. He has the watch bill and the class up list, and he's like, "Hey, this person has watched this time. This person is classing up on Tuesday. Make sure you're there on time." It's not really the whole time I was there. It was not really a formal like mustering event where like you're at attention, you're in uniform. And all that. So every morning, I have been taking my coffee cup to this let's call it let's call it formation. Um and one morning, one of the civilians like beats on the window, like beat on boom, 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 boom. You need to put that coffee cup down. I'm looking around. I see this dude got on sunglasses. I'm pretty sure that's an earring in his ear.
Oh,
They got on book bag. I'm pretty sure those on Navy issued shoes. There's
yeah.
no way. There's no way she took time out her day to beat on this window and yell out the door, or yell out the window that I need to put a coffee cup down, right? And we're not in formation, like we're just kind of gathered around. But okay. Um, so then she comes outside and she gets in my face. She's like, "You're prior enlisted. You need to set the example. There's no reason for you to have a coffee cup in formation." And again, I look around, I'm like, you know what, like okay, ma'am. Hey, yes, ma'am. Now, here's where,
This
you know,
wasn't formation, correct? Just the
nobody has been called to attention. Like there's no dress right dressed. It's not a formation. We're just standing in a gaggle,
right.
listening to the lead ensign. Okay. And again, like I said, my man got shades on standing next to me. You know what I'm saying? Like people got on book bags. Some people got on jackets, some people don't. This is not a formation. Okay. All right. So I say this is where I say, I messed up. She said that, and I was like, yes, ma'am. And I kept my coffee cup in my hand and I just kind of turned away from her. She was like, "Oh, you Mr. Big and Bad. Okay, we'll see how big like you are when so and so
Here we go.
come talk to you." Now, in my head, that incident was so small, I forgot about it. Like as soon as it was over, and I wasn't on a watch bill or anything like that. I forgot about it. I go home. I get a call later that day, and there's a hey man, Lieutenant Commander Fayok wants to talk to you. I'm like, hey man, what's it about? Yeah, I think it's about your FAA stuff, man. Just come in around 1300. Talk to Lieutenant Commander Fayok. No problem. So put on my uniform, come back in 1300. I come to the desk. I'm like, hey, has anybody seen Lieutenant Commander Fayok? And my man is all of like 4'11". He's like, yeah, I'm Lieutenant Commander Fayok. You need to come talk to me. And so he in civilian clothes. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, sir. So he pulled me to the side and he like, yeah, you're disrespectful and you da 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 and you da da da. I'm like, I'm sitting there thinking in my head, like, what did I do?
Yeah.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So finally, I would say we probably good 45 seconds, half a minute into him just like screaming at the top of his lungs. Finally, I say, sir, yeah, I have no clue what you're talking about, sir. Like, I would love it if you just shed a little bit of light on it so we can have a discussion about it. He was like, you're disrespecting my civilians by, the coffee cup, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, if that's the case, we can bring her in right now, sir. And, I can apologize, whatever I need to do, or we can make this right. And no, it's too late for that. You're dealing with me now. So
Mm. Okay.
this is where I believe
Okay.
not being a part of the culture is really becomes a problem, right? Because I see I see my counterparts do things far worse, far worse than taking a coffee cup.
Mm, mm, mm,
Let's even call it formation. Let's call it formation. Far worse than taking a coffee cup to formation and get treated with way more grace.
mm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
Now, so now he gives me what he calls EMI. Can't technically give an NCO or officer EMI, but whatever. So now he has me, not only am I on the watch bill every night, but I'm cleaning the classrooms. I'm like, whatever. I'm gonna sprout where I'm planting.
Yeah.
So at the end
Come
of
on.
when I'm cleaning the classroom, I'm talking to the people that's in class. Hey, what y'all studying today? Oh, okay. Y'all talking about weather? What's a METAR? Oh, yeah, yeah. Come on, let me see. Can I sit in y'all study group? I mean, y'all in this room, I gotta clean it. Like, I can't clean it till y'all leave. Y'all mind if I sit in y'all study group? He finds out I'm doing that and shuts it down. Like, no, you're not cleaning rooms anymore because that wasn't the purpose. The purpose wasn't for you to, you know, learn. You know what I'm saying? Right. So now this is about a month in, and finally I'm like, sir, like the punishment don't fit the crime at this point. Like I bought a coffee cup. I'm being punished. I've been punished for a month for being a coffee cup.
Mm, mm, mm.
So now, like, sir, like I need paperwork. If you're gonna punish me, I need paperwork. You need to get my EMI check. Oh, you a C lawyer, da 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 da. And like goes off. Right. And so
Mm.
now I'm like, okay, I need to get somebody else involved. Okay. He was a 04. So I went to every other 04 in the building. Every other 04 in the building. No, none of them want to help. No, man, I don't want to get involved. That's between you and
Yeah.
him. What kind
Uh,
of leadership is that?
yeah.
What kind of leadership is that? I go to the director 05. Hey, sir, this is what I'm doing. Hey, I'm not gonna go against my instructor. My instructor said da 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 da. I'm not gonna get involved. What? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? There was nobody in that network I could turn to and be like, hey, provide me guidance on how to end this because this is ridiculous.
So everybody turned their back on you
Correct. To
over
the
a
point
coffee
where
cup.
I even like I'm like, yo, I could go to Master Chief. I can go to CMC and say, hey, CMC, I need some stick and rudder. I go talk to CMC that day, like, because that day that I asked him for the EMI shit, like he really went off. And I was like, hey, CMC, I need some stick and rudder. It's like at this point, probably like 12 o'clock in the day. Excuse me. And CMC looks at his watch and says, "Ah, man, I gotta take my son to soccer. Mind if we talk about it tomorrow?" And I'm clearly like distressed, like I'm almost in tears. Grown man,
Mm.
almost in tears.
Yeah.
CMC, there was nobody in my network, nobody in that node that I could turn to for guidance in that, right? Um, right, wrong, or indifferent. If I'm right or wrong, I just needed somebody to give me some guidance, and nobody, nobody was willing to do that. And I think I can't imagine somebody of their culture going to any of them individuals and being like, hey, sir, I need help. And then they look at this person that looks exactly like them, and then they say, no, I'll figure it out. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that. Can I prove it? I can't, but I can't imagine that being the case, right?
Sounds like a setup, brother.
Okay.
Okie
So
doke.
so that goes on for quite some time, right? Now,
Mm.
during that time, we had a new XO, we had a new executive officer
Right, right, right.
check in, and he liked to get there. He liked to get the schoolhouse early. I was on a permanent watch for late watch, so I was like, I think I was from like midnight to like 4 in the morning, and XO would get there right as I'm about to turn over. And me and him would chat. He was prior listed, cool dude. I never told him about what was going on because at that point I'm thinking like he's XO. He ain't got time for my little problems, right? I know that was absolutely the wrong mentality to have. But so me and him kind of build a rapport. Uh, and so one day I get another call, and the guy's like, "Hey, this lieutenant wants to talk to you. Won't you come in again around 1300? Talk to him." I'm like, "Hey, I just had the midnight watch, and I got to watch again tonight. Like, can we make this like close? Can we do it like when I get off watch in the morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that? Like,
Right.
come at 1300. Cool. All right, cool. So I go in there and I knock on the door. It's flight school. It's really informal at flight school, right? So I knock on his door, but boom. Hey, sir, just somebody told me what like you better stand at attention. What? Like, what are we doing? Like, you da da da, this, that, and the third, like yelling. And again, I'm like, I have no idea what this man. I've never met this man before, and I have no idea what he's talking about. And I'm like, sir, I have no idea. What are you talking about? He was like, you still haven't apologized to the civilian lady, Miss Beverly, about the coffee cup.
You never had a chance to do it.
And I'm like, it's 2 months later. Who are you? He's like, I'm a division officer. Like, dope. I've been here for 3 months, and it's the first time I meet you. You coming at me like that? Like, so now I'm mad. Now I'm mad. Like, where you been this whole time? Where was you at when Lieutenant Commander Fayok went crazy? Where was you at when he had me on AMI? Like, what are we doing here? Like, what's your purpose of being a division officer? If this is the first time, so he calmed down a little bit and we talked about it. Um, so my FAA situation was this. When I was 19 in St. Louis, I got a DUI. Now the DUI um was a zero tolerance DUI, right? So because I had any level of alcohol in my system under the age, automatic DUI, right? The judge booked it the way he booked it. He said if you make it to 21 without any more alcohol related incidents, then it's going to be expunged from your record. I um I declared it when I joined the Navy, and I declared it when I put my officer package in. But when you go down to Pensacola, there's a little more scrutiny in the screening. So they wanted more information. The
Mhm.
problem was he actually expunged there's no record of it anymore. The only record of my DUI is in my Navy record. So when they queried the city and the county, nothing came back. So I needed to submit paperwork to the FAA to see if the FAA would approve my student pilot certificate. Which so that takes time, right?
Sure.
So the FAA is going to query again, and if they don't get it back, then they have to make a decision on if I'm too high risk to fly. Does that make sense? So,
Okay.
so that's the process we're going through. Now, in that process, you have to see a psychologist because the psychologist has to determine what's your level of alcohol dependency and how does that balance with our risk matrix for putting you in a plane.
Mm.
That makes sense, right? Like I'm like that all that makes sense to me. That should happen, right? I would
Tracking.
expect.
I'm tracking.
But going through that process takes time. So I'll sit down and talk to this division officer and I tell him about that. I'm like, hey, this is a process that I'm going through. I'm just waiting on the site to give me the all clear to go in the flight school. He was like, oh, I know her. The reason why I'm here is because I got disqualified for flight because of psychological issues. So I go see her all the time.
Mm.
Like, okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make contact with her and see if we can get this pushed through. So I could start the pipeline and get out of this building and go do great things. He's like, okay, cool. But before you do that, what I want you to do is first thing in the morning, I want you to come in and apologize to Miss Beverly. I say, no problem, sir. I'll be here first thing in the morning. So I stood to watch. I didn't stand, yeah, I stood to watch from 12 to 4. Um, and I went back home, and of course, I come back. What time did I get back? I think I got back like 7, like normal muster time was 8 o'clock, and I got there around like 7:30 or something like that, right? And so he was like, "You're late." I was like, "Sir, you told me to be here bright and early. I'm 30 minutes earlier than muster time." He's like, "Yeah, but Miss Beverly's been here for an hour." Like, so I have no idea what time Miss Beverly shows up. I have zero idea what time Miss Beverly
Mm,
shows up,
mm,
but I'm
mm.
here now, and I'm willing to do whatever we need to do to get this. Nope, no, no, you're already late. Why were you late, sir? It doesn't. In my and like in my head, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't. I, I don't know. I guess parking lot, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm here.
Like,
He's
I'm
like,
not late.
"You're in the parking lot." Like, okay, sir, I was clearly being facetious. He's like, nope, that's a deliberate lie. Okay, so he wrote me up. So in flight school, you get I want to call them demerits, but I don't think they're called demerits. I think it's like a boot camp thing. But you get these three, you get 3 times to mess up, and then you have to go before before a review board to see if you can continue on being a flight student. Right then and there, he wrote me up for being late, lying, and I had a coffee stain like on my uniform shirt from standing watch from 12 to 4. And he wrote me up for a dirty uniform, which gave me enough paperwork for him to send me to the review board, which was 10 o'clock that day. So, um,
You do realize how trivial that sounds, right?
okay, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's I'm
okay.
sitting here listening to you, brother, and it's like I can't believe that my man went through all this for what? For what?
Um, the if I had I'll finish the story, then we can talk about it. We can kind of go through that. So you go up to this board and it's chaired by an O 04 and then 3 O 03s. I don't remember. My mom, one was like a Marine and a couple Navy lieutenants. And guess who chairs the board? Lieutenant Commander Fayak. Correct. Yeah. So go up there and they're like, hey, tell us about what happened. Tell them about the whole coffee cup incident. Tell them about like, what's going on with me and the whole DUI situation. And like they're like, and like Lieutenant Commander Fayak, he's like saying wild stuff. Like, he was like, yeah, you're one of them backstabbing first classes, aren't you, dude? That's the only way you can make it as a first class. You got to backstab all you. I'm like, what's this dude talking about? Like, this is
Right.
great.
What?
Um, so finally they were like, all right, so did you tell um Lieutenant Corey, I can't think of his last name, but Lieutenant Corey, um, that you were in the parking lot? And I was like, yes, but I was being facetious. It was like, yeah. So was that a lie? I was being facetious. Like I was upset. I understand that that wasn't the right time to say something like that, but
Yeah.
I was really just making fun or like pointing out how silly he was being. And they were like, yeah, but was that a lie? Yeah. So you lied as an officer. Yep. I can't trust you on the plane. They all unanimously voted to attract me from flight school right then and there.
Mm.
Later that day, you go see the director. Keep in mind, already talked to the director. Director's already like, yep, I approve their decision. So now it goes up to COXO. CO's on leave. XO's the chair of my review board to attract me from flight school.
Mm.
And they're like everybody goes around the table. Oh, you know this. Oh, you know that. Oh, you know this. And then XO just looks at it and says, "I'm not gonna lie. This sounds like a failure in leadership. Like I'm not even mad at him. I'm mad at you guys. So what
Mm.
I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw all this out. Lieutenant or Ensign Davis, you're gonna go to the psych, and you're gonna figure out whatever's going on over there, and you're gonna get in the pipeline as soon as you get that paperwork from her. And the rest, if I see your name come across my desk again, I'm putting you out the Navy. Like you're gone, right? So immediately
That's crazy.
make an appointment to go see the psych. Now, every time I'm going to see the psych at this from this point, up until this point, it's been great. It's Navy medical. She's a civilian psychiatrist. Like it's like they playing spa music and flowers falling everywhere, right? It's
My
a
goodness.
cool environment. I go in there, man. We on first name basis. We got a secret handshake. It's cool, right? This time I go. I make a appointment. She's like, hey, yeah, come by Friday. This time I go. There's an MA standing at the door. Like as soon as I walk up, an MA standing at the door. And when I walk in, she's outside her office. She's like, Ensign Davis. Yeah, I'm Ensign. Hey, how's it going? So yeah, yeah. Come on in. And I go in and there's a male lieutenant or lieutenant commander. I don't remember what he was, a male like nurse in her office. I'm like, yo, this feel crazy. So first thing she does is like opens up my record and goes over, everything we've already talked about, right? All my like, so, my time in St. Louis, right? When sometimes you get suspended from school for fighting, right? You get arrested or there's some kind of record or speeding tickets. Like we've gone through everything that's in my record at nauseum at this point,
Mm.
right? So she recaps everything in my record, and then she closes it and she just goes, "All right, tell me about the coffee cup incident." And I'm like, "What in the world?" So I'm like, "Man, coffee cup incident." So then she kind of gives me what she knows. Now this part right here is kind of speculation, but like if me, let's say you and I are in a car, and you're driving, and I'm in the passenger seat, and you rear end somebody. If you told the story, there's going to be certain aspects of the story that you're going to know that I have no knowledge of. Like, how fast you were going. If you were pressing the brakes or not. Right? So when you tell the story, you're going to have those type of things. And there's going to be type of things that I'm going to know. Like, so I'm going to know that there was somebody walking down the street or there was a cat or a dog or something that you couldn't see from your angle. And when I tell my story, it's going to have those elements in there, right? So just by knowing that, when you hear a story told back to you, you can kind of surmise where it came from, right? You understand how that works? We
I
all
do.
understand how that works, right? So it stands the reason in my head that if she had got an official report from the command, like the XO, sent her an official report, there would be certain details she would know and would not know because they wouldn't be in the official report. The way she ran the story down for me sounded like she heard it from the division officer, Lieutenant Corey. When we sat down and talked, and I told him about it, and he told me that he also had mental issues and he was talking to her. But the way it seemed as if, and this is what cued me in. When she made her final recommendation, she said, you would be a control risk in a plane. And that was the same exact thing Lieutenant had said to me when he was talking to me in our one-on-one. Nobody else knew about that conversation but me and he and I.
Hmm.
So my speculation is he didn't like what happened when the XO basically called them inept leaders. So he went and told her, like, there's no way you can approve him to fly a plane. And she was like, okay, stamped it. Right. That whole situation, right, weighed heavily on me the first couple of years in my Navy career. I mean,
Can't even
every
imagine,
decision I
boss.
made, I questioned it, right?
Can't even imagine.
Right. Until I met my current mentor, who is an aviator, who kind of went through that same thing, man.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And he was like, the only reason you didn't make it through that is because you didn't build a network around it. He was like, when I got there, I knew that I needed a network around me um because there's no way you could make it in a situation like that on an island.
Mm-mm.
Um, And that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned in the past few years is um you're only as strong as your network, man.
Whew. So, man, wow. There's it. I'm speechless, brother, because y- people just shouldn't have to go through all of that. If they don't want you, just say, I don't want you. Why build this huge lie?
Mhm.
And I'm surprised you didn't lose your cool in the midst of all this junk that you were going through. Because, uh, hey, man, the average person probably would have lost their shit. And I'm just going to be blunt with you.
That was the first time I believe that was the first time I remember having an anxiety attack. Because you got to think, at this point, I got a wife and 3 kids. And
Mm,
I don't know what these people are going to do. I don't know if they're going to put me out the military. And all I've known is the Navy for the last 10 years.
I, I,
And
mm,
then I get put out with like a some kind of other than honorable.
yeah,
I
mm,
That was the first time I remember having an anxiety attack. And I remember
mhm,
like um
mm,
man, it's just like not being like heart beating on my chest every night. Can't
yeah,
sleep.
yeah,
Like my wife looking at me not knowing what to do. And this is the even crazier part. I was so ignorant that I didn't even seek help. Who am I gonna talk to? I'm gonna go talk to the psych and tell her I'm having a panic attack because she put me out the Navy, right? Now I know there's so many other resources.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
yeah. I will
Yes, it
say
is.
this though. Again, you are only as strong as your network, right?
I firmly
Man,
believe it. Yes,
so
yes.
in the midst of those panic attacks and not knowing what to do, someone said, "Hey man, call somebody." So I called my old commanding officer who had then become my mentor, Captain Dave Vondrek. I called him. I'm like, "Sir, they put me out of flight school." He was like, they are? Don't even worry about it. I got you." And he called the community manager for the career field I'm in now. I was like, "Hey, we got a good guy, great maintainer, not doing so hot in flight school. I want him in this community." And when they say go where you celebrate it, not tolerate it, the opportunities that have arisen from being in
Mm,
this community, I mean,
mm,
to the point where first I would almost say first name basis with the senior leaders in my community. I know almost every '06 in my I can call almost any '06 in my community right now, like, "Hey sir, I just want to talk to you. I just want to shoot the shit."
yeah.
Um, to the point where um after my first tour as a JO, my community was like already like, "We want to invest in you." And they sent me to go get a master's degree. Right. We're investing. We
Mm,
know we know you got, 13, 14 years in, and we know that there's a possibility in a couple of years you could get out, but we're going to invest in you because we believe in you.
yes.
Do I believe that community would have done that to me? No. No. I don't. I don't think that community would have invested in me like this community has. I don't
Well,
think I would have the opportunities that I have now, um, if I stayed in that community. I don't think so.
you would have lost your mind, brother.
Absolutely. Or I would have either I would have did that or became a shell of myself.
Yes,
I think I would have became like an Oreo.
you would have gave up.
Yeah.
And that's what they were trying to do, brother.
Hmm.
Think about it. They were trying to make you fold and really like break you.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
And
mean, that's unethical on so many levels. I
right.
mean, I'm sitting here listening to your story, brother, and I'm getting I'm feeling triggered just by listening to you.
A lot of people say that. A lot of people say that.
I'm triggered just
A
listening
lot of
to you
people say
share
that.
your story because I've been I haven't been in situations that severe, but I've been in positions where it was either you do this or I'm going to do this, and it's going to make you look like this.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
so it's like I understand taking it on the chin, as you said before. I understand that totally, but to your level, brother, you strong, man. I congratulate you on your durability and your strong will to see it through, because some people wouldn't have done that.
I would say that was more out of ignorance than anything. I didn't know how to seek help. I
Ignorance
didn't
is bliss, I
know.
guess.
I didn't know when to pull the parachute and be like, "Hey, no," or blow the whistle. I'm like, "Hey, no, what you guys doing?" And I
Yeah.
would even go so far as to say, I failed the Navy by not properly documenting that. Why didn't I submit any kind of paperwork on it? Right?
Well,
Why
here's
didn't
the
I?
thing.
Why
Here's
didn't
the
I have
thing.
an investigation done? Right?
Pride,
So,
sir, you didn't have to do that because you didn't do anything wrong that would warrant it.
but if that type of behavior is going on, and I don't tell the right people about it, then how do I expect it to get fixed?
So what did you do in terms of aftercare? What did you do to make those people be held accountable for what they did?
So
Or did you take it on the chin?
I haven't done that. What I am doing now is mentorship and spreading the word. Don't suffer in silence. Don't suffer in silence. What I do is a lot of like I get senior people in my community. Like I said, I can call senior people in my community today and be like, "Hey, sir, I'm doing a no host. Come, come meet the junior people that just commissioned. And come talk to them." And then I bring that up. Hey, sir, what if there's somebody out on the flight line right now, and they because it still happens, right? Like where brand like think about a situation where a brand new second lieutenant or ensign shows up to a very senior command, right? These people have been operating at a high level. They got a couple of deployments together under their belt, and now
Yeah.
this second lieutenant or ensign shows up and is like, "Hey, I have to take charge of this." How like in real world terms, like there are situations where that person just kind of gets shunned
Hmm.
and or they get mistreated in other ways. My thing is telling those people don't suffer in silence. There's a network out here to help you through that, right? Worst case scenario, we'll all saddle up and come and sit at your command for a day, and we'll all just hash this thing out. We'll open the dialogue.
Yeah, right.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things I think about a lot. Like I feel it, and I hate that I did that because how many people before me went through that situation, didn't raise the flag?
Mm.
How many people did I set up behind me that's going
Yes,
there
brother.
right now that don't have a precedent to say, hey, look, I'm not the only person saying this.
You probably not.
And this is the crazy part, right? So the way naval aviation is set up, they know that there's a high attrition rate for pilots. So they've set up this awesome program to where you can redesignate. Um, and so they have a whole division set up to helping flight school attrites find new designators in the Navy so they can go out and do good things, right? This is the crazy part. And I don't have like real numbers. I'm gonna just throw out some numbers, right? If flight school was 90% white, the attrition division was 90% everything else. So if I'm sitting in class, nobody looks like me. But
You're right.
when I go to the redesignation division, everybody in there look is black dudes, white and women.
Pretty much.
Crazy part. It was another crazy part. There was
Brother, I
flight
have
attendant. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody in the chat who's also a Navy veteran, his name is
Mhm.
Adam. He asked, "What community are you a part of now? Since you're not you didn't finish flight school. Where are you at now?"
Yeah. Hey, so thanks for the question, Adam. Shout out to Adam.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
I am a 1520 or aerospace maintenance duty officer in the Navy.
Aerospace maintenance.
Yep. So we do do the maintenance and logistics for aviation for F-18s, Sierras, helicopters, F-35s and stuff like that. We make sure that they
Cool.
have everything they need to fly, man, trained, equipped.
I want to ask you, Pride, have, because of what you went through, have you ever found yourself mentoring young sailors about how to be better versions of themselves and
Constantly,
what to watch out for?
constantly. So I try to stick away from what to watch out for because everybody path is different, right? And I don't want to give anybody any negative preconceived notions going into a situation. But I'm constantly talking about self-development, self-awareness, right? What books to read, what classes to take. The Navy offers a plethora of classes on how to be a better leader, a better person, a better sailor, a better mom, a better dad. Take those classes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Understand how the things and the people around you work and how you fit into that situation and how you can be the best part of your team.
What's next for you in your journey, Pride?
That's a great question. Right now, I'm in a pre-commissioning unit for uh the Navy's newest L-deck aircraft carrier. And I love this spot, man. While it's kind of out of platform for me, I'm not making jets fly right now.
Mm,
I'm making sure people are ready, right? I'm making sure that the crew is trained up and ready. So when the Navy says, "Hey, your ship is ready," we meet the ship and ready to fight the ship that night, right? Our goal is when the Navy delivers the ship,
mm,
the Bougainville
mm.
LHA-8, if SecDef or SecNav says, "Hey, we need you guys in the Red Sea in less than 6 months," we can make that happen.
Good,
So that's our goal.
good, man.
But what's next for me is the Navy wants me to go up and to a program office and help alleviate some of the logistics concerns for a couple of our platforms.
Good. How can people reach you?
So right now, my Instagram is Pride of the City LLC. That's my Instagram handle, and then my Facebook is going to be just my name, Pride Davis.
Okay. All right. Brother Pride Davis, it has been an extreme pleasure to sit and talk with you, brother. And man, I don't know what to say, brother, other than thank you, man. I really, you got me shook. I really, I'm I'm blessed to have had this opportunity to finally sit down and break bread with you and to hear your story, man. You know, it lets me know that although the military has made changes, there's still changes that needs to be made still yet. You know, and the road isn't the road isn't clear yet. The road isn't better yet, but it's better than what it was.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, in order for true change to occur throughout the military, throughout each and every branch of the military, there has to be a significant transformation of this.
Hmm.
And it has to start from the top. It can't start from the bottom. It has to start up here and it trickles down. And I think in order for that to happen, brother, we have to get rid of the old heads because their way of thinking and their way of doing things isn't working.
That's a double-edged sword, right? Because you lose a lot of the wisdom and lessons learned, right? And then you start to repeat some of the old mistakes that you should have learned from, right? I think we should change how we utilize our senior people, our senior leaders. Um, man, I met Admiral Howard, the CNO, a lot of big admirals in the Navy, and I like what they are espousing right now. Right? They know, hey, look, I don't know everything. I don't. I'm only as good as the last lesson I learned. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're really doing. they're really writing some good policies to allow for that old way of thinking to be expunged from the Navy, especially with this the get real, get better scenario, right? Where, a lot of us don't want to brief anything wrong. Hey, no, everything's good, ma'am, sir. And a lot of our senior leaders are saying, no, embrace the red because um, how do we get better if we're not real about where we are, especially when we start talking about people problems, when we start talking about people issues and trauma and mental health and stuff like that. We have to start talking about those things. And a lot of our senior leaders are writing policies geared
Mm,
toward making sure that that happens. So when we get the call that we're ready to fight as soon as that call comes through. And I love a lot of the new stuff that I'm seeing. I really do. I
good.
don't want to leave the Navy on a bad note, man. The opportunities and experiences that I've had in the world's finest Navy are bar none the greatest anybody from my background could have ever hoped to have had. Um, and if there's anybody out there considering um joining any of the services, really, I mean, I know we have our brother and sister rivalries and stuff between Army
Sure.
and the Air Force, but any of the armed services, even the Coast Guard, I even say the Coast Guard, um, is a great place to learn and figure out uh your personal stuff, right? And then leave there with transferable skills that you can take that people will pay good money for you to bring to corporations. Um Man, I highly recommend any of the armed services to anybody even considering it. At least do your 4 years
Yeah.
um and see where it takes you.
Yes, sir. Totally understand. Totally agree. Lieutenant Pride Davis, it has been an honor to have you on my podcast and to have you share your story with me, brother. Uh, if you want to talk again, you know where I'm at. You know how to
Yeah.
reach me. So I know you're in training right now, brother, and I know that it's been a long day for you. It's been a long day for me. So I will end this conversation right now, brother, and get you some sleep. Get ready for tomorrow, brother. God bless you, man.
All right, have a good one, man.
You too, my brother. You take care. And to everybody here, thank you for taking the time to listen to the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. This is Mark Ross. And remember, self care is important. So please make your mental and physical health a priority every day first. You guys have a good night. Brother Pride, I'll holler at you soon.
All right.
My man. Peace, everybody.